Apple here. Those shares are rising to intraday highs as investors are digesting the tech giant's announcement of its AI platform. This comes as a reversal to declines in the stock after Apple's keynote presentation yesterday. For more on what can drive gains for Apple, let's get to Laura Martin, Needham senior media and internet analyst. Laura, it's great to see you as always. You were not terribly impressed by what we heard yesterday. And I did think it was interesting that there was sort of this meh stock reaction, and now the shares are rallying again today. What do you make of it?
So, I think that they are, they just talked for 65 minutes about new colors and emojis and capabilities. And I felt like a Snap CEO talking, like we're going to target 22-year-olds. When their average owner of smartphones in their 40s and in the top, 10% of incomes globally. But so I thought that was weird. And then they did generative AI sort of in the last 20 minutes. And I think Wall Street only cares about generative AI. Why? Because Apple, their revenue was down last year 3%, and this year we're projecting 1% revenue growth, which is really uninteresting as a stock unless they're going to use generative AI to drive an iPhone replacement cycle. And iPhones are over 50% of their total revenue. So, and I just didn't hear that yesterday. So that means I didn't change my estimate, or the consensus estimate also didn't change. They're going to grow revenue at 1%. Let's go to sleep, guys, and let's put our money somewhere else. So you saw selling throughout the keynote speech because we just don't, nobody's changing their estimates today based on Gen AI, and you have to wait a year. They only do these updates once a year, and they only do sort of product upgrades once a year. So now we didn't like what they said yesterday. We're going to wait a year to figure out whether we like what they say next year about Gen AI.
But Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, you do have a buy on this name, right?
Yep.
So how come? You weren't excited by what Tim Cook had to say on stage yesterday, but you must be excited by something, Laura. What are the catalysts ahead?
So let's see. Google, which is Alphabet, Amazon, and Microsoft are all spending $100 billion building large language models for Gen AI, because they're going to take a 10% tithe on every dollar earned in their clouds on Gen AI. That's interesting. Strategically, long-term, really bad for the P&L. Your returns on capital are falling in those enterprises this year and next year. And then they're going to dominate the world. Opposite with Apple. Apple's not raising their CapEx guidance at all, not a dollar, but they just announced a $100 billion share repurchase, telling you they don't think they have anything better to do with their money than return it to us. So while I just told you that our sales are going to go up 1%, their EPS is going to go up 8% because they're buying in shares, which is putting a floor under the shares. So as a shareholder, you want to be in Apple this year while they're returning cash to you. But in 4 years, you don't want to be anywhere near the stock because it's going to be in a strategic box. Whereas these other companies that have already spent the money 4 years from now are going to be sort of riding the big wave of generative AI innovation.
Laura, what I'm really curious about, though, as I heard Apple yesterday, even if you weren't that excited by what they were saying, in terms of generative AI and the role it plays in our everyday lives, it's virtually zero, right? Yes, I Google something and it summarizes something with AI at the top of the page. Big deal. I got my face in this thing all day long, and now it's going to have AI integrated. So isn't this really going to be most consumers' first real opportunity to be convinced that they need AI functionality?
No, I don't think so. About half of my companies are using generative AI today. I was on a call, and they're going to do panels. They're going to make lookalike, I'm going to call it people or proxies of people that looks like a Bulls fan. And then they're going to run advertising by that generative AI panel to figure out, before they actually run a test market in the real world, which is $1 million, to figure out which ad that's going to lower the cost of advertising. I have companies not using an ad agency anymore because they're having generative AI create the ad, put the music to the ad, and create different slogans and put them different places with A/B testing themselves. Generative AI, as you know, writes text, it writes headlines, it personalizes things, all in real time at a tenth of the cost of the old world. So no, I think generative AI is here to stay. And a lot of companies are making a point of how they're using generative AI today, not tomorrow, not when they launch their next product in September or December. Like Apple said, they are using generative AI today. And a lot of my companies are saying they're going to cut costs 20 to 30% in areas where they're using generative AI to replace people, like in services or chatbots, which we've seen a lot of so far.
Laura, it is always good to have you on the show. Thanks so much for making time.